With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today.
In the Vegas Nation Fan Zone Q&A. I'm Adam Hill. I cover the Raiders along with our great coverage team here at the Review Journal. Ready to answer any questions you guys have. Hopefully you've submitted some throughout the week, either through Twitter or the Vegas Nation Fan Zone forum. Any way that you want to reach out to us, Facebook as well, however you want to ask questions, and we'll try to answer them here each and every Tuesday. See a couple here right away. So let's get into that. What is wrong with the Raiders defense? Is it the player's execution, the scheme, the play calling, or some combination of all of those things? Well, the very easy cop-out answer here is some combination of all those things. And thank you to D-Boy Aaron Apolos for that question through Twitter. That's the easy answer. A combination of all of those things. There's definitely a lot of problems with the Raiders defense right now. So I will not give that easy answer. I mean, I will use that, but I'll just use it as a starting point to a lot of what is going on. I know a lot of people right now are quick to point a finger at Paul Guenther, the defensive coordinator. I saw a lot of people wanting, through the comments, I saw them all wanting him to be fired because of what is going on with the defense right now. I think that's a kind of a cop-out way to go of like, okay, the defense is struggling. Let's get rid of the defensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of issues there. First of all, they are very, very young in the secondary. We know that. We understand that. And I think everybody kind of baked that into what it was going to be. Now, when you invest that much as they did through early picks in the draft on a guy like Damon Arnett and Jonathan Abram last year, like, you do expect those guys to be somewhat ready to go at the NFL level. Now, the problem is Jonathan Abram missed all of last year, so he's essentially a rookie this year, and he's been a little bit banged up out on the field. He's still adjusting to the NFL level, and I think learning how to be a guy that can be a big hitter, but you can't do that every time, and teams are starting to kind of take advantage of his aggression against him a little bit. And then Damon Arnett has been hurt the whole time that he's been here. He's been trying to play through it, but now he had the big setback and is on IR for a while. So now you're getting into some of your depth, which, you know, Nevin Lawson is a guy that's been around. Trayvon Mullen is the other starter, and he's played actually very, very well. But I think that's the starting point. You look at a lot of youth in the secondary. Also, you invested heavily in the linebacking core. You brought in Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski, and Nick Kwiatkowski is a guy who showed a lot of promise. They expected to take a much more significant role than he had with Chicago. And then, of course, he comes in, he gets hurt in the first game. There was some concern he'd be out for the year. He did bounce back. He came back last week and got on the field, and I think that's going to help. I think that there was some signs that he'll show some improvement in that defense. He's the guy that, you know, gets the defensive signals. He calls the plays, and then that guy right next to him there in that video is Corey Littleton. Corey Littleton, who came in from the Rams and has, I would say, elite coverage skills, and he has showcased that throughout his time in the NFL. I mean, the Rams used him on receivers at times. There's highlights last year of him, you know, shadowing Michael Thomas. He's a guy that can absolutely cover, but he comes in and they want him to take on that role, and then Kwiatkowski gets hurt, and Littleton has to do a little bit more than they really had asked for him to do all throughout the offseason. So it's adjusting to roles, it's injuries, it's all those things. And up front, I think you're seeing some of the same things you saw last year. There's some of the guys, Max Crosby is starting to show up in the sack column again, but there's times where he leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the gap control as a defensive end. And sorry, I'm losing the losing my. I guess I'm talking too much about the Raiders defense, and maybe that's showing up here. They're not happy with it. Trying to fix my angle there. So yeah, I think that there's a lot that you have to look at and you have to analyze. But the defensive line up front, you've got a couple of guys that are playing fairly well. I think Mo Hurst is playing fairly well. Malik Collins is a guy they thought would be the key to the defense. That's what John Gruden said about him. Hasn't really been a dynamic player just yet. I think they need a little bit more out of him. But it starts up front. You need to control the line of scrimmage, which they haven't been able to do up front. The linebackers need to then have a little bit more room to operate and settle into their roles a little bit better. And then you need some help on the back end. All that being said, yes, I think there is a lot of pressure on Paul Guenther. Paul Guenther, defensive coordinator, came in 2018 with John Gruden. They are friends, very close friends, which makes that a little bit even more difficult situation, perhaps, for John Gruden. But they have to figure out how to make it work. Last week, Paul Guenther, who usually is on the sidelines with Gruden, moved up to the press box. They wanted to see if he can get a little bit better look at everything that's going on, a little bit better view of everything. And then they were worried that it might impact communication, but it didn't. They communicated very well. So I think they may stick with that and see how that works out. But they've got a big task at hand. I mean, if your defense is struggling, especially in the passing game, the one thing you don't want to see is the Kansas City Chiefs coming in, and they've got to go to Arrowhead and play Kansas City, and their offense tests even the best defenses. So as much as there's concern about what's going on with the defense, I don't know that playing the Chiefs is going to help. And then of course you got a bye week, you got the Bucks coming up very soon. We've talked about this schedule quite a bit. It does the Raiders no favors here in the first half of the year. They are not favored in a game until week 10 against the Denver Broncos. So there's a lot of challenges to try to work out here. We'll see if they do it, but they don't have much time to do it either. So I think a lot of pressure on Malik Collins, who did just get hurt the other day, and Mo Hurst took on a more prominent role.
Being able to cover backs and stuff like that, and Kwiatkowski in there.
A lot. There's a lot there to try to sort through for sure for the defense, but it's going to have to get better. I mean, that's the bottom line of all these things. There's reasons for all these things, and you could call them excuses. I think reasons are different than excuses, but call it what you want. It's got to get better. It's got to get fixed. And if it doesn't, it's going to be a very, very long season once again for the Raiders, who 2018 had the worst defense in the history of the franchise. Got a little bit better last year. This year's numbers are kind of trending like last year's. But let's also point out that across the league, offense is up, defenses are down. It's an offensive heavy league right now for a couple reasons. I think not the least of which is that with no OTAs, no mini camps, no presence on the field, and then really no pads for the first month of training camp, there hasn't been a whole lot of hitting. And I think that has affected a lot of defenses around the league. But we'll see if the Raiders can get better anytime soon. Good question there from D-Boy Aaron Apollos. Randy Leduc at leduc.com. With what we currently know from scientists and doctors, what's your confidence level that 100% capacity will even be possible next season? How about confidence level of 80%? I guess that might be fair. I mean, listen, as you said, it's what we know from doctors and scientists. We are not doctors and scientists, obviously, but we understand the protocols that they are trying to put in place. Allegiant Stadium now, for those that are tuning in, is not going to have fans for Raiders games. That is a Raiders decision. The state is allowing 10% capacity right now for football. If you want to get them in there, you have to have a plan to separate everybody into groups of 250. There can't be any cross-pollination, as they call it, between the groups of 250, but they could put 6,500 people at Allegiant Stadium for Raiders games. The Raiders do not want to do that until there's 100%. UNLV football, which will start their first home game, would be Halloween against Nevada Reno. They will have, at least the plan is in place right now. It's not been formally approved, I guess, but they will have 6,500 people in the stands for their games, so they will get a chance to go check out Allegiant. And as I said, the Raiders could do that if they wanted to. They don't want to. They don't think it's fair until 100% of the people that paid for seats can get in there. So um, I do think we'll continue to see expansion. Like I said, it's up to 10% now. I would imagine that number only continues to increase, and then if there is therapeutics and vaccines approved and all of those things, and we hear optimistic reports, so if those things do happen, then sure, I think we could get to a point next year where you would be able to have maybe the 100%, which is what the Raiders want before they can allow anybody in there. I know they are planning a big potential grand opening for next season because they weren't able to have one this year. So we'll see what they end up doing as far as that goes. But yeah, I think that there's a fairly good chance that can happen. And like I said, the Raiders will fight for it because they don't want anybody there until they can have 100%. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, let's go. Not 100% confident. As you said, what is the confidence level? We'll go with that 80% number, I think, which could end up being a more realistic number. But I think that there's optimism. I do think there's optimism for that to potentially happen. See where 10 on Twitter. How's Marcus Mariota looking at practice, and will he be suited up this week? So this is not a COVID thing. This is an all the time thing, covering NFL football, in particular the Raiders. You only really get to see the stretching period at the beginning of practice. You don't really get to watch practice as a reporter. So I'm there every day, but you don't actually get to watch the guys practice. Marcus Mariota did get in a couple of practices last week as he works his way back. He did not practice Friday. So not sure. We don't know from them. We try to ask around a little bit, but I don't know if that's a setback or just a rest day or how they're approaching that, but he did not practice on Friday. So the way this works is that once he starts practicing, which was last Wednesday, was his first practice. Once he starts practicing, the Raiders have a 21-day period to evaluate Marcus Mariota. So that clock started on Wednesday. They get 21 days to evaluate his health. Is he ready? How close is he? Is he going to be able to contribute at some point? So they started that clock. So they could have waited as long as they wanted to start that 21-day clock. They started it Wednesday with him practicing. So now they get to watch and see and see where he is. And after that 21 days, they have to decide whether to shut him down for the season, keep him on IR, or to activate him to the 53-man roster. So you would think that they would be somewhat close to knowing where he is if they're going to start that clock, because they could have had all the time they wanted to wait on that. They don't have to wait the 21 days. As you mentioned, will he be suited up next week was the question, but they don't have to wait that 21 days, but they can. They've got that option if they want to wait that out. So I think we will see how they approach him, where they think he is. I don't know if it'll be this week. In fact, I would lean toward probably no on this week as being suited up to be the backup, but especially because you've got a bye week coming up. So I think in a lot of cases when you have you saw it with the Packers last night. The Packers have a bye week next week. Devontae Adams said he was healthy, he was ready to go. They didn't play him, and I think a lot of what went into that decision was, okay, he doesn't play this week, then he gets a bye week. He's got 2 weeks really to get fully healthy. So I think that weighed into their decision, and I think maybe the Raiders might be along those same lines. Some of these, as many injured guys as they have, and obviously you want everybody to be on the field to try to beat the Chiefs, but with a bye week, I think you look around at some of your injured guys and say, well, if they're not fully ready to go at 100%, there's really no reason to rush them back if they can have 2 weeks to try to recover with that bye. So we'll see on Marcus Mariota, but they do have that 3-week clock started on making a determination on whether he can be ready at some point. And they'll have to make that decision after 3 weeks. Looking at some of the questions up here on the fan zone, which thank you guys for jumping in there and sending your questions in there. Somebody said, after the bye, we will know who our team truly is. This is from Shindell Carty. 2-2 so far after playing the Saints, Patriots, and undefeated Bills. Not bad at all. Just win, baby. So I think this is interesting. I feel like the last 2 weeks with the losses, a lot of the comments that I've been getting, a lot of the tweets, a lot of the Facebook messages, the emails, the phone calls, all the way you guys are great with how much interaction you have and how much you want to talk about the Raiders. It felt like after 2-0, it was, hey, they're winning the Super Bowl. And now after 2-2, it's the end of the world. obviously, this is not going out on a limb. Obviously, the truth is somewhere in between those two reactions. Uh, I would say if you look at the schedule to start the year before the season, if you were starting to track, I think we all do this when we're kids. If you're playing in a league, or even now, if you're in some sort of adult sports league, you get your schedule and you look at it and you start marking down. You have a pen: win, loss, loss. You kind of get a feeling of where you think you're going to be as a team. And I think before the season, if you would have predicted, and if you would have gone by the odds board, the Raiders would have been 1-3 right now. If you were just being honest and making your selections and how do you think they're going to fare, they'd be 1-3. The odds boards had them at 1-3 at this point of the year, and to be 2-2 means they are exceeding expectations. Not, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. I think a lot of people want them to be 3-1, 4-0. You want your team to be as good as possible, but if expectations are 1-3 and you're 2-2, that means you are exceeding those expectations. Now, as I said, according to the odds board, they're not going to win another game for several weeks. Week 10 against Denver is the next time they're favored. So you need to overperform if you want to be in the mix. So if you just went by what the odds board says, they'd probably be a 5-11 team, and I know nobody wants to see that. So yeah, I think this point is right, and as you said, 2-2 not so bad after playing the Saints, Patriots, and Bills. Totally accurate, and I think that you could be excited about 2-2 if you're a Raiders fan. However, I think one of the reasons that I thought a lot of gloom after this Bills game last week from a lot of the players and the coaches. If you watched the press conference, they were definitely down, and we heard the Derek Carr sound bites about being sick of losing and enough is enough and all that. It didn't sound like a 2-2 team. It sounded like an 0-4 team, and I think part of that is they're aware, as we just pointed out. Like, you go down the schedule, you look, and the Raiders are aware that they're 2-2, but they're 2-2 with the Chiefs on the road on deck. And not everybody believes they're going to win every game. I get that, but everybody in the league is also realistic. If you're going to Kansas City, the chances of coming out with a victory are pretty remote. They're going to go do their best they can. They're not unbeatable. They're not, it's not some astronomical task to try to beat them. But expectations are you're probably going to lose that game. And now you're 2-3 going into the bye with games against the Bucks and on the road against Cleveland and on the road against the Chargers. You've got these tough games on the horizon. So it's a 2-2 with maybe one of those trending down arrows, and I think that's what's kind of led to 2-2 being looked at as much more disappointing than it actually is on paper. Because on paper, it's a pretty solid 2-2, and that's I think that's somewhat important to kind of realize and to put into perspective when you look at this. I thought there was one more that was up here on the Fan Zone site. Well, I will answer. This is a question. I will answer it. Why is Carr still a Raider? Why is Gruden losing? And why is Gruden still the coach? Well, it's a very strong strong reaction. First of all, John Gruden is here as long as John Gruden wants to be here. He will be the coach for. He had the 10-year deal. He's on the third year of it. He will be the coach for as long as he wants to be, and I think he still has a passion for it. I think he still believes that he's grinding it out in the right direction. He's going to get there where he wants to be. So, and I know that people are fired up this week. It's the Fire Paul Gunther crusade. John Gruden is going to make those decisions, but John Gruden is going to be here as long as John Gruden wants to. As for Carr, everybody kind of said this is a make or break year. And, I think one of the things we talked about a lot this offseason was, they thought about moving on, but it wasn't financially advantageous to move on from Derek Carr after last season. It might be, it is more financially advantageous this year. It's more feasible to try to look in another direction. And to that end, they gave Carr pretty much everything that he could have needed, right? Solid offensive line, really talented receivers that they invested heavily in the draft, a couple of veterans too to go along with those guys, and Zay Holdover and Nelson Aguilar. They had Tyrell Williams. Then, all of a sudden, Tyrell Williams goes down. Henry Ruggs goes down, the first-round pick. Brian Edwards, the third-round pick, goes down. Those weapons aren't there anymore. He still has an elite running back, elite tight end to work with. He's got 2 offensive linemen out, 40% of his starting offensive line out. So all those things that we thought were in place for Derek Carr to succeed, and why we said it was a make or break year, because he's got everything he needs in place. So it's all on him. Well, that's not really the case anymore. All those injuries have depleted a lot of what we thought there about the Raiders offense. That being said, as much as there might be disappointment in the 2-2 record and you know, the still wanting to go downfield a lot more that a lot of fans have felt, and I think criticism has come from the media and the fans as well for not taking enough shots downfield. All those things are still there, but you look at what Derek Carr is doing from a stat perspective on a weekly basis. You know, hasn't thrown picks. He's been over 100 quarterback rating all 4 weeks, which quarterback rating can be deceptive. And I think one of the criticisms that people have had is that Carr has protected his quarterback rating by throwing a lot of stuff underneath. You say what you want, he's still putting those numbers up. Still had 4 straight games of over 100 quarterback rating, which is really impressive. He also, and I think this is something to really, really pay attention to and to note, all 4 games this year, all 4 Raiders games, Derek Carr has thrown a touchdown pass in the final 2 minutes of the first half. All 4 games. So when they've needed to put together a drive to go into halftime, that's so important the teams talk about, especially if you're getting the ball first in the second half. You get that touchdown right before halftime, go in, get the momentum, feel good about yourselves, come out, and then maybe even try to get another touchdown if you get the ball first there. Get that double dip. The Raiders have been able to do that. They've been able to score touchdowns at the very end of all 4 first halves this year, which is something they definitely want to keep going. Now, the problem has been the third quarters haven't been great, or at least right away in the third quarter. Some of the third quarter has been pretty good. But yeah, I think there's a lot of positive signs, and I know that they want to get better. Everybody wants to get better in every area. There's always room for improvement, no matter what. But I don't think you can pin a whole lot of what's been going on Derek Carr. And I know, listen, as I said, I know the same things are pointing out. The fans that want him to take more deep shots, they still have that criticism because he's really not taking that many deep shots. But is it because he doesn't want to, or because Henry Ruggs isn't out there? Because week 1, first half, Henry Ruggs was out there. They took 2 deep shots against the Saints on Monday Night Football. They took a couple deep shots down the field. Nelson Aguilar was a guy that they took some deep shots to. He drew a pass interference. They were able to do a little bit of that. So they did have that kind of going for them a little. They are still trying to take some deep shots, but there are some factors there, and it's tough to do it if you can't stand in the pocket because your offensive line is injured as well. There's a lot of those factors going in. So injuries, certainly one of the big ones that has held them back a little bit, both on the line and the wide receiver core. But there's plenty to like about what the offense is doing. There's also plenty to improve on for the offense. But I know a lot of the focus right now is on the defense because the defense has mightily struggled. But it looks like that is a lot of the questions that we have from you guys. Make sure, as I said, throw them in on Twitter, Facebook, the Vegas Nation Fan Zone site all throughout the week. And we can answer them here on Tuesdays, either myself or one of my colleagues that jump in here. Tuesdays at noon, so make sure you check that out. View every week what we are doing here at Vegas Nation, and every day, lots of stuff up there on Vegas Nation, including, since we just talked a lot about the defense, John Gruden yesterday, the vote of confidence for defensive coordinator Paul Guenther. Oftentimes that's called the dreaded vote of confidence because it's sometimes followed by a firing. I don't think that's the case here. I think it is a legitimate vote of confidence that he thinks Paul Guenther can get the job done. But for myself, Adam Hill, for all the people behind the scenes here as well, and my colleagues, Vinny Bonsignor, Sam Gordon, Heidi Fang, Cassie Soto, everybody that helps out here, Ed Graney as well at the Fan Zone. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys again in about a week with all your questions being answered and all the coverage that you need leading up to Raiders and Chiefs coming up on Sunday.